you will agree with me that Africa is not lacking in initiatives on industrialization, development, or climate action. We are currently implementing the second 10-year plan of Agenda 2063 alongside many other efforts across our continent. Only recently, the Africa CEOs Forum concluded deliberations in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, while the Africa Development Bank's annual meeting ended last week with the election of Dr. Sidi Ould-Tah as the new president of the bank. We extend to him our warm congratulations and best wishes as he assumes leadership of our premier financial institution. Similarly, the African Union Conference on African Debt, held in Lome, Togo last month, marked a critical milestone towards a coordinated continental approach to addressing our debt challenges. Looking ahead, next month in Kampala, the Coalition of African Ministers of Finance for Climate Action will convene, followed shortly thereafter by the Africa Ministerial Conference on Environment that will be held here in Nairobi. Preparations are underway for the inaugural Africa Economic Summit, scheduled for December. Despite these significant efforts, the reality remains that tangible results in addressing climate change, accelerating development, and managing debt remains elusive. As we navigate an increasingly complex and uncertain global environment, it is imperative that Africa recalibrates its approach. We are witnessing profound shifts, a competitive and volatile geo-economic landscape, rapid technological advancement, and the reconfiguration of global trade policies. In this fractured world order, Africa must rethink its strategies, look inward, and explore how to strengthen and leverage its own institutions to compensate for the shortfall in external investment. At the inaugural Africa Climate Summit, we positioned Africa as a key investment destination, an indispensable trade partner, and an essential driver of global climate solutions. The momentum generated in 2023 must be sustained as we look forward to the next Africa Climate Summit in Addis in September this year. And Africa faces the dual challenge of enhancing resilience to climate shocks while operating within limited physical space, even as we pursue the imperatives of industrialization and economic growth. With a projected population of nearly 2.5 billion by 2050, Africa represents the most significant emerging market globally, with unparalleled potential to become a global hub for green industrialization powered by renewable energy. Yet today, Africa accounts for merely 1.5% of global renewable energy capacity, a mere 67 gigawatts compared to a global total of 4,400 gigawatts in 2024. Also, our continent has less than 2% of global manufacturing output. I said 2%. Moreover, we receive only 3% of global climate finance. While our population rivals that of China, our installed renewable energy capacity is 67 in stark contrast to China's 1,400 gigawatts. This disconnect between Africa's vast resources and limited outcomes is a reflection of deep-seated structural barriers and the misalignment of global investment flows. Unlocking Africa's potential demands deliberate and coordinated action by African governments, financial institutions represented here today, and the private sector. This will not only navigate the emerging geopolitical economic order, but also shape it to reflect our collective aspirations for stability and prosperity. AGII and the Accelerated Partnership for Renewables in Africa represent Africa's flagship responses to this historic moment. Together, these platforms offer a coherent framework to align energy transition with industrial transformation, value addition, and sustainable economic resilience. Achieving these objectives will require investment flows that are aligned with Africa's priorities, building value chains in the continent, reducing external dependencies, and enhancing strategic autonomy. Our convening here today seeks to deepen these partnerships, to collectively explore how we can position Africa not just as a participant, but as a major force in building and sustaining a climate-aligned global economy. This is all the more urgent as geopolitical competition intensifies, global economic dynamics shift, industrial policy is redefined, and major economies recalibrate their trade rules. Ahead of this meeting, we shared a brief note outlining the objectives of today's engagement, a set of guiding questions, and a draft cooperation framework. These reflect our collective commitment to advancing AGII and signals the willingness of the institutions represented here to drive its implementation. In particular, we look to Africa's own financial institutions to ensure that the continent is not left behind in the global race towards green transition. The essence of this meeting is for us to have an opportunity to make sure that AGII represent Africa's priorities, and we have packaged them well so that they become investment opportunities. And therefore, it is necessary for us to build a collabo, if I may use that word, a collaboration between the private sector, the commercial banks, the financial institutions, and the public sector. So to speak, to build a Team Africa, that then brings all of us together into a space where we leverage the public sector, those of us who have the wherewithal in that space, and create synergy with the private sector and the commercial sector as well.
I think for us at Equity Bank, we feel the initiative today of getting the African development and commercial banks together as bold but very necessary, because what it means is that the African entrepreneurs will be supported domestically and locally with local currency to play a significant role. So the foundation of African green industrialization can be homegrown, home-led, and wealth created to be retained. There's room for global finance, for scaling, for syndication, but it is important to ensure that we play our rightful role.
Our commitment is mobilizing more than $16 billion towards industrialization, towards green infrastructure, renewable energy, inclusive development across the continent by 2027. And a number of that resources at Africa level, we operate in 20 countries. We've raised more than $5 billion of that and deployed a number of projects. So this is very much aligned with what AGI is already doing. So the $16 billion is our own bank's commitments at the continent, and it's something we are renewing as we move forward in the year 2027 to 2030. On climate action and on integration, our ambition is to double the level of our green portfolio lending in our own organization. So this call is to say we're doing today close to 10% of our portfolio. The ambition for us is to double that to 20% by the year 2027. So we are already partner and very willing to work with the AGI initiative.
If we don't manage to solve this problem, we're going to get left further and further behind, because the energy that is required to run the technology and computers that are required for AI is shocking. And if we don't have that energy, we are not going to run that AI, and we're not going to get the productivity that is required for us to be competitive, to run the industries that we want to export products and services outside of this continent. And we need to obviously invest, and I think this is more a longer term program, but can also be shorter term, is how are we preparing, as you indicated, Africa is going to have the vast majority of young workers by 2050. How are we preparing them to be ready to be the workforce of the world operating from Africa, rather than seeing that brain drain going out? So I think there needs to be an education pillar as well that can be done in the short term. And we've already heard there are actually many examples from here in Kenya that I think we can replicate by doing that. So I think this is an urgent call. EcoBank is available to support in any which way we can. We will work with our colleagues, here around the table. And I'm sure if we focus on execution, we will get somewhere. Let's just put some 1 step, 2 steps, rather than complex frameworks that don't deliver anything for our respective countries.
Industrialization stands as a key strategy for achieving sustainable economic transformation in Africa. It offers a direct pathway to generating significant formal employment opportunities, enhancing productivity, and fostering inclusive and resilient growth. This focus on industrialization is a central element of Agenda 2063, which outlines the continent's vision for development and prosperity. Africa is at a unique intersection in the green industrialization and global climate narrative. It is both one of the least contributors to climate change and one of the most severely affected by its adverse impacts. While the continent emits a fraction, less than 4%, of the world greenhouse gases, its population face disproportionate risks due to higher than average temperature increases, shifting rainfall patterns, and a rise in extreme weather events. Despite these challenges, Africa is emerging as a significant actor in the global climate mitigation effort as we harness the green, cleaner, and renewable energy potentials to leapfrog our industrialization efforts, demonstrating leadership and a strong commitment to climate resilience. In response to these pressing issues, the African Union has taken proactive steps through the Climate Change and Resilient Development Strategy and Action Plan 2022-2032 and Green Recovery Action Plan to support our member states in the green transitions. These ambitious strategies promote a green and climate resilient development pathway, integrating robust government, sustainable policy frameworks, and regional flagship initiatives. It aligns closely with Agenda 2063, which envisions an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, prioritizing climate-resilient economies and communities. By advancing governance, implementation strategies, and regional collaboration, the AU is laying the groundwork for a sustainable and resilient African future.
Thank you for considering AFC in this initiative. As we know, the geopolitical environment has drastically changed over the last 12 months. And increasingly, we're seeing majority of African projects around the continent being supported largely by regional and local financial institutions within the continent. Through our subsidiary AFC Capital Partners, we launched the Infrastructure Climate Resilience Fund with a target of $750 million by 2025. That offers and blends concession and commercial financing to accelerate climate resilient infrastructure development across Africa. We have secured roughly around $250 million from the Green Climate Fund for that initiative. And following action points should be considered for AGI. I think one is to shift the narrative of our power on the continent. It's mostly reliant on how many people lack access to power, more than the investment demand. So for example, our study that we've done, the AI data centers in the United States will consume more power than Egypt. And we need to invest in early stage projects that will meet those power demands over the next 5 to 10 years as we look to develop this project, because we don't believe that sector can kick off without the necessary power infrastructure. We also have identified low-hanging fruits to crystallize this green industrial revolution. We are investors in various bauxite mines in Guinea, manganese mines in Gabon, and nickel mines in Cote d'Ivoire. And the intention is to build mega infrastructure clusters across the continent, where the intention is to not just export the ore anymore. We have to refine and smelt those products to value additive products within the continent, which will also contribute to our large power consumption in the region. So I thank you, Your Excellency, for contributing to this initiative. Thank you very much, sir.
We believe that the continent's financial architecture represented here should collectively scale up its catalyzing of green industrialization in Africa in several ways. One, adopting holistic approaches for industry cluster development with project finance covering the entire value chains. For example, green hydrogen hubs producing fertilizer and steel, mineral processing zones powered by renewables, eco-industrial parks using circular input and low-carbon logistics, etc. Two, strengthening local ecosystems, notably industrial SMEs, like component manufacturers, recyclers, logistics providers, etc., which could be supported by local currency green lines of credit, guarantees or partial risk-sharing facilities to enable lending to new business models, equity catalytic funds, for example, climate venture funds or industrial SME accelerators. Three, strongly supporting African champions in their continued growth and pathways to decarbonization and low-carbon industrial cluster hubs. This we could do via direct financing, sustainability-linked financing, green bonds, etc. Four, supporting MSMEs development via targeted investments in venture capital and private equity funds, targeted via financial institutions, as well as setting up and anchoring specific debt and equity vehicles. Five, and lastly, developing specific blended finance platforms for industrial clusters. Here, this initiative, the AGII, could promote platforms that pool concessional public and private capital into dedicated green industrialization vehicles, targeted at strategic clusters such as green cement, electricity mobility, hydrogen-based fertilizers or agro-processing, etc.
A bit forward, so you're on time.
So thank you, Excellency, and thank you for your leadership on this matter.
The Africa Green Industrialization Initiative, I'd like to offer to focus on that. Africa 50 can help. The third priority is the more transmission line in Africa. We want to do more in Kenya.
We bring all actors on board.
South of Africa, East, Central. In Kenya, by the way, PSSF is one of the more work to mobilize those resources. Now, Excellency,
we also did mandate the SCF
platform to make sure that we are provide
the contribution of Africa to industrialization and climate action are going digital. and therefore there is need for us the emerging opportunities and also to significant players in the industrial space means.
Well, thank you very much, Excellency President. Excellency Private Sector, good morning to everybody, and it is a pleasure to be here.
Industries that are part of the industrialization program.
Complete respect for that. At the same time, we have a massive challenge here in Nairobi on the 6th of September in 2023, mitigation, adaptation, and so on.
About mobilizing domestic and regional financing. And the cooperative framework as...
I'd like to convey the greetings of President Adesina, who is the chairman for project, if the project are not prepared for this new project. Asset recycling, we did the first asset recycling.
Allah help us in this world and the hereafter. Oil, Allah help us.